She is in Brown Daisy Moms of Michigan. I don't know why.
They invited me.
She is not a mom. She doesn't want to have kids.
Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammy and Michelle.
It started innocently enough. I logged into Facebook and I saw on my newsfeed she had posted a cartoon queen with the words, "My dentist said I need a crown." I said, "I know, right?"
Then it was LinkedIn. I saw she had commented on one of my old coworkers' announcements that she had gotten a new job. And she wrote, "Congratulations. I'm so proud of you." She doesn't know this woman. I knew she was out of control.
Suddenly, she was all like, "Deepika bought her dad a Tesla. Deepika moved back to Texas. You should dress up as Wonder Woman for Halloween. Like Deepika."
Who's Deepika?
Deepika is a beauty influencer. And also one of the 5 people my mom follows on Instagram. And no, we have never met her.
Deepika is our mom's third daughter, as we like to joke. The truth is, it's easy to joke about the social media usage of our parents. And thank you to our mother for letting us poke fun at her.
Attention is a scarce and fragile resource.
So scarce, so fragile.
I remember I was looking at this awesome visual, which we'll link to in the show notes.
The girl loves visuals.
I do love visuals. From this website called Visual Capitalist, where they had all the companies in the world organized by their market cap. And the biggest circles on this chart were all tech companies and a lot of social media companies.
Alphabet, Meta, Apple. Who guess what? They get 30% from these social media apps.
Tencent?
TikTok.
And you would think people, humans in the world, what kind of product, what kind of resource would make up the largest companies' market capitalizations? And you would not think it'd be social media. Maybe it'd be food. Maybe it'd be feeding the starving people. Maybe it'd be gas. Maybe it'd be power. But no, it's social media, which is insane.
So why are we talking about this today, Sammy? Here's the thing. Sammy and I, a few years ago, we deleted all our social media. We were living a good life. Then we started a podcast, and we had to rethink our relationship with social media. We had a whole conversation about this very early on in our podcasting journey, but we thought this was a good time to revisit it. Because here's the thing. If you ask people, a lot of times people will say, yes, I know social media is bad. Blah, 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 blah. I don't care. They'll say you should just control it yourself. And I think that's ridiculous, if I'm being honest.
It is ridiculous. I agree with Michelle. It's like $200 billion that they're expected to spend on social media ads this year. And to tell someone to control their usage, I'm like, no. Okay, the world's brightest and brilliant are spending all their time trying to figure out how to keep your eyeballs on a screen. So you got to do a little bit more than think, oh, I'm just going to try to control my usage.
It's an easy way to dismiss something that's so pervasive in our society. And so we are doing a deep dive today on going beyond the screen and rediscovering your life without media. And we're going to give you some practical tips for it too.
Let's get into it.
But first, Sammy, you know, on Build a Wealthy Spirit, we love a good growth mindset. We love learning about different ways that we can improve ourselves. And we have a great podcast recommendation for you from my friend Lawrence. He has the Self-Improvement Project, which is a podcast where he has these bite-sized episodes where he chats about different topics around bettering yourself, around growing, around his own struggles and the things that he's focused on. And he gets it because Lawrence has over 200 podcast episodes. He's been doing this for over 3 years. He has been writing online. He has a newsletter. And I had a chance to chat with him. I actually asked him for advice because I was starting to feel really overwhelmed and I was starting to feel like I didn't know how to manage my time. And he gave me this great advice where he was like, look, the goal is to focus on mastery. The goal is to make sure that we are spending our time on things that actually make us better, the things that we want to be better at, the things that we value, not so unrelated to this topic today. And so we highly recommend listening to The Self-Improvement Project. You can check it out. We'll link it to our show notes. Obviously, you can find it anywhere that you listen to podcasts.
Back to today's topic, Beyond the Screen, Rediscovering Life Without Media. For today's episode, Michelle and I were looking at a wonderful piece by the godfather of digital minimalism. Who is it, you're wondering? I'm talking about Cal Newport. I'm obsessed with Cal Newport.
Sammy loves Cal Newport. I also love Cal Newport.
We love Cal Newport. Deep work, digital minimalism, how to be a straight-A student. He has been there guiding us along the way. Thank you, Cal.
Thank you, Cal. And we thought that this piece in particular was such a good complement to what we're talking about today. Because we have been off social media, off our personal social medias for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
But it's hard to necessarily prescribe, hey, just delete everything, get over it. And he does a really good job of actually getting to the root problems and how to reflect so that you can make it so that technology is serving you and your values and not the other way around.
Cal has this idea that when you're thinking about getting off social media, you should start with your first principles. Look at what your life is about. What do you value? And this is what I did when I first got off social media. I was planning on getting rid of everything. I'm like, I want all social media gone, just like Cal, my godfather, has told me. But I realized I wasn't quite ready to let go of my Facebook groups. Because at that time I was living in the Bay Area, and I would go to a lot of financial independence meetings, and they would post these meeting updates on the Facebook group. So I was worried, if I get off Facebook, how am I going to know about these meetings?
Sammy's not joking when she says that she loves Facebook groups. Sammy and my mom, both strangely power users of Facebook groups. And not just the normal ones, like the FI group in the Bay Area. Sammy is somehow a part of 5 different FI groups in 5 different locations. Charleston, Michigan, Phoenix, literally all over the map. She is in Brown Daisy Moms of Michigan. I don't know why. She is not a mom. She doesn't want to have kids. My moms are in these groups too. And my mom is in like New Mothers of Charleston. And she'll like tell me about it. And I'm
like
like,
old Mothers of Charleston, okay.
I hope you're not going in
Mothers
there.
of adult children, more like it.
So yeah, these people, they love their Facebook groups. But you know what? It's something you value.
And so I wanted to stay on Facebook because I wanted to stay in my groups. But I did not want to be on Facebook looking at other people's posts all day because I just find that to be not that helpful for me. So this is what I did. I went through my newsfeed and I removed posts from every single person. There's a way on Facebook where you can go to a person and you put, please do not show me their content. And I did that for literally everybody.
You manually did that for everybody?
Yes, I manually removed everybody. And it wasn't out of spite. I just didn't want to be seeing all these random posts all the time. So when I go into my Facebook, my newsfeed is blank, except it's not actually blank because Facebook does send you advertisements, but it is mostly blank. And I can just go to my groups and focus on the groups without getting all the extra stuff that Facebook comes with.
See, Sammy, I love that because you are trying to take the good from your Facebook, which is these groups. Like you want to meet with these 5 people. That's something you really value. You love financial independence. You love personal finance. You love these communities. It makes sense that you want to keep that into your life. And so you can work backwards to try to make it something that is manageable for you. You did it by manually removing everybody from your newsfeed. There's actually Chrome extensions that do this as well. We'll put those in our show notes so you guys can check them out. I also like this idea, Sammy, because we had the same problem when we launched this podcast. It was very easy to be off Instagram, to be off Facebook, to be off Twitter, when all it was were our friends. Who care about those people? But when we launched our podcast, we realized that we wanted people to listen to it. And manually texting all of our friends and family members was not going to be the be-all, end-all solution for our marketing strategy.
Yeah, especially when it's a recurring podcast every week.
Yeah, exactly. So we had a big conversation about this because we're like, this feels a little bit against what we want to do.
It feels like we're going into the dark side.
Yes, which we were, quite honestly. You know what? We knew it was important to us. We valued this creative project that we were putting out into the world. We heard back from people that they enjoyed it, that it was making an impact on their lives. So we were like, okay, you know what? We're going to try making brand-specific social media.
And we learned a lot by doing this. When we first made Instagram, we thought this is great. Our listeners will know when episodes are out, and maybe we can find new listeners. Turns out, Instagram doesn't translate well to podcasts.
Sammy, you know what? I love this because this comes to the second point that Cal Newport makes, which is make sure that this best tool, quote unquote, that you're using is actually better than other resources. So Instagram for us, after about a year or so, we noticed we had about 200 followers. We hated using it. I would literally go on Instagram, put up an audio file, and then I would go to the explore page and I would look and I would say, and I would see all of these posts about how Katie Thurston, the most recent bachelorette, had broken up with her ex and he was spotted in Maui with another woman from Southern Charm. And I really spent a lot of time looking at stuff that I didn't care about. And so when we saw we had a reel go mini viral and we saw no increases to our podcast listeners, we decided to pull the plug. We were like, this is not paying off. Like, people are still listening to our podcast, whether or not we post on our Instagram. Maybe this isn't the right move for us. It's not the best tool for the job. We thought it was. We posted consistently for about a year and a half. We decided it wasn't working.
So if you've been to our Instagram and you saw it looks like a status post of Alton Graveyard, that's why.
Yeah. That being said, Sammy, when I started writing, I decided to give Twitter a try. Twitter, which lets you put in the direct link for the things that you are doing, which Instagram does not. And actually, it's made a huge difference, not only because we can share our podcast, other people can retweet, they can comment on it. And so many people have reached out to me via Twitter about how they enjoy our podcast, how they enjoy my essays. So Twitter actually has been a good funnel for our podcast, and thus we found it to be a better tool for sharing our podcast and being able to find more listeners who are interested in our message.
Cal brings up another good point on his piece on digital minimalism. And it's just that digital clutter is stressful. He compares digital clutter to having a cluttered house.
And Sammy, nobody understands living with hoarders better than us.
We're really going to be in trouble for this podcast with our parents.
Just kidding.
Living in clutter can be a nightmare, and it just can be so hectic. And it's the same way with social media. We were just talking about Facebook and how I had done a good job removing everybody from my newsfeed so that I could only go on groups. And I have to tell you, Michelle, I have been reevaluating this decision.
Yes.
Facebook has come out with some sort of video feature where they show you tiny videos that you can watch that are very interesting and they hook you. And when I think about this, I think of digital clutter being stressful because I'll watch these videos when I'm not being focused and I want to take a little break. I'll watch these videos and afterwards I'll feel even more scatterbrained. And the worst thing is these videos are getting more and more specific towards me and even more and more interesting. And I do not know why that means that they are all 90 Day Fiancé videos, a show that I have never actually watched, but I have watched tons of clips on, especially about a little short man with no neck called Big Ed. And I really regret all of it.
The thing is, we kind of say, it's obvious. Clearly, these videos are a problem. You would think, I go and I watch these and I don't want to do it, so that's just what I'm going to do. No. Sammy has told me about a lot of these videos. In fact, sometimes she has flagged me down so I can watch them. And guess what? She's supposed to be working, okay? And I don't want to watch a woman going up and down an escalator, hitting on people, and seeing if they respond. Okay, Sammy,
what
I do
is up
not
with those
care.
videos? I don't get it, but they are entertaining.
No, she literally watched a 12-minute compilation of those. It's like the worst use of your time in the world.
It literally is. And that's why I've had to reevaluate my choice with Facebook. Now, I actually don't live in the same area as all these groups. And yes, there's a part of me that wants to stay part of these groups just to get the feedback, the questions. But especially since Facebook has come up with this little video feature thing, I think it's time for me to say no to Facebook.
I agree, Sammy. I mean, this idea of digital clutter is also the same reason why we can't be on every social media platform for our podcast. People are often like, why don't you go on TikTok? Why don't you go on YouTube? Why don't you go on Instagram? Why don't you go on Twitter? I'm like, first off, it's just me. Second off, like it's going to spread us thin. And the truth is, if I go to TikTok and YouTube and Instagram to post something, it's going to be like 5 different times I'm going to have to fight the temptation of scrolling through these things. And they're only getting better. TikTok is like crazy good algorithm.
They are.
I don't even think about it. I just go on. I want to share something. Next thing you know, I'm watching one video of a couple Indian kids dancing and I'm like, I wish I could be like that. Then I'm watching another video about like ASMR, someone squishing something in depth.
No, make it stop.
Which I hate. Actually, I hate ASMR. It like really freaks me out. Then it'll be like someone cooking and I'll think about Oreos being dipped in chocolate and I'm
That's
so
very
yes,
targeted at.
Next thing you know, our 1 hour is gone.
Or maybe it'll be YouTube shorts. And they, for some reason, are giving you a bunch of information about North Korea. Who knows why?
Nobody knows. That's why we're having this episode, people. Okay, you can have completely deleted your social media in 2018 and thought you were good. Guess what? It's time to reevaluate.
They found new ways and you might have accidentally joined them. So that's why it's important to reevaluate.
One point that I really like that Cal Newport makes is really thinking about the reason why we're doing this in the first place, right? Yes, you can start with your first principles. You can think about what's my life? What are my values? You can try to find the best tool for the job. You can try to declutter. But he makes a really good point that activity beats passivity. As in, doing something, taking action, being a citizen of this world, creating, all of that is so much more fulfilling than sitting and watching something over and over and over again, numbing your brain.
And this is why if you walk into Michelle and I's living room, you might think that you entered into the 1800s. People ask us, where are you churning the butter? Because we don't have a television.
They don't ask us that, but that would be clever.
We don't have a television, we don't watch Netflix, and we've actually been doing that longer than we were off social media.
Yeah, Sammy, it's interesting to think about. When you think about media, it's easy to think about social media in terms of something that's addictive. But the one thing I did without actually really consciously eliminating it from my life was cutting back and really eliminating watching television and watching movies. Part of that was because, like 10 years ago, the guy I was dating and I broke up, and we used to watch television together. Before that, I used to binge watch a ton of television in college when I was home in Michigan. But once I was in San Francisco, I was like, I want to live my life. I'm like bored sitting here watching a TV show. Like, I want to go meet my friends. I want to go to dinner. I want to go be outside. I don't really want to sit and watch a screen. And like, my patience has just gone out the window for that kind of stuff.
I remember when I moved to San Francisco, I made a very deliberate choice not to watch television and not to be on Netflix or any of those TV streaming or movie streaming sites because I was paying a lot of money to live in San Francisco. And I don't want to be doing the same thing I could be doing in the middle of winter in Troy, Michigan.
That's the truth.
And it's interesting because when you stop watching television, you could put on like a BBC documentary about moles and it will sound like Jerry Springer because you're so unaccustomed to just like the drama of television.
I'm not going to lie, I wasn't sure where that was going to go. Because I think no matter what, a BBC documentary on moles would be something that you'd be into. You love wildlife.
Which documentary was this? Because
Did you watch
they didn't know the father. Is that what's going on? No. But like it resets your like hedonistic scale. And so anything that you watch after not watching TV for like a decade seems so dramatic. It's like, no, like this is nothing like real life, actually. It's like, this is extremely dramatic. And it's very obvious when you don't watch television or you don't watch Netflix all the time. And all that to say, the truth is you don't want to be engrossed in an elaborate, dramatic drama. You want to be actually living your own life. You want to be doing things that you love to do, even if that's maybe reading a book instead, or working on a project, or starting a podcast. The truth is, if you spend hours doing things like watching television or on social media, That is hours of your time that you could be spending doing something else. And it reminds me of our good old favorite, maybe most favorite quote from this podcast, which is the Bill Gates quote. We overestimate what we can do in a year, and we underestimate what we can do in a decade.
Ooh, yes. Good old Bill Gates. No, it's true, because the truth is that you can actually spend 10 years watching television. I think for a good portion of my life, that was me. I watched a lot of television growing up, to the point where, honestly, Sammy, I wasn't even watching interesting stuff. I was just binge watching old sitcoms that were like average, but I just wanted to watch something. And I was probably a television expert by the time I had stopped watching television.
It's true. And maybe you want to be a cinephile. But for the rest of us, there's other stuff to do.
Takeaways.
So takeaways for this episode, Sammy. A few things. First and foremost, when it comes to your relationship with media, social media, even television, even movies, anything really that you're sitting there watching and numbing your brain, you have to actively evaluate to see if it's something that is meaningful to you. And with the way social media is today, with how addicting it is, how they set it up so that it's literally a slot machine for your brain in terms of just getting dopamine hit, dopamine hit, dopamine hit, you have to be aggressive about it. You can't just passively be like, social media is bad. I guess people got to spend less time on it. These kids, I got to put their phones up. No, okay? You have to think about it, which is why we wanted to highlight some tips to do that today.
First, think about what you want to be doing with your life. What do you care about? What's important to you? Before deciding what you want to get rid of when it comes to social media or television, think about what you actually value.
Exactly, Sammy. And then you can bring in tools if they serve you a purpose for you. If they align with your values, then we don't argue with bringing those back in your life. Sammy likes her Facebook groups for communities. I like Twitter with being able to connect with other creators and be able to share our podcast. But we've really thought about whether or not those tools are valuable. And also think deeply. Is the tool you're choosing actually the best tool to reach your end goal? That could be true for a variety of things. In our case, we had chosen Instagram to promote our podcast. And then we found out it wasn't doing much for us. And actually, we were losing a lot of time to scrolling through sensational topics about The Bachelorette.
Be mindful as you use your social media or as you watch television or visual media. These things, they can be stressful. They can make you feel more scatterbrained after. Keep an eye out for how you feel during and after using these different types of media. That can be a clue as to whether those Facebook groups are no longer useful and it's time to get off Facebook. Goodbye.
Also, if you're going to delete any of your social media, again, Sammy and I have done it, give yourself 30 days. I think that's the addiction point based off of my own personal experience. I noticed that when I deleted Instagram, Snapchat, not really Facebook. When I deleted Instagram and Snapchat, I realized that at first I wanted to scroll, like literally my thumb wanted to scroll. I would pick up my phone and want to look at it. But after a month, I didn't miss it anymore. So give yourself a little bit of time. I think you might be surprised at how you can beat that addiction.
And lastly, activity trumps passivity.
Be a doer, create, make. Think about what your interests are. Dabble, pick up a hobby. There are so many things like that that will just make you feel so much more satisfied. Things like social media and media in general, they're meant to make you sit there and numb your brain. It's not satisfying. Even cutting down on your time is good, but really just delete everything. You can come back to it when you start a podcast.
Community time.
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time.
Community time.
And Sammy, speaking of Facebook, guess what happened this week?
What?
On our town Facebook, somebody asked about a doctor in town, the new pediatrician. Unrelated to say anybody who is part of this podcast. And then one of those snowbirds commented back, I like Samantha. I wake up every day hoping something is wrong.
The patients here are wild.
They're wildin'.
You know, I thought that my census was high because I was doing a good job. And I should have known better than to be that naive. Okay? These people want to be sick.
Let me tell you something. After living in a town filled with retirees, these people, they're out of pocket. They don't give they will say what's on their mind. They got a sense of humor. These people, they're on Facebook. They're trolling.
Also, you're in a small town when you are being talked about on Facebook. It's just too much.
So true. So we have a couple shout outs this episode. One, Josh commented on our episode about the inner voice. He actually dropped the timestamp 1721. Said same. I had to go back. I do not have our podcast memorized by timestamps. I aim for that though. But it was about how we were talking about how with your inner voice, you should journal so that you can kind of see what's actually going on. And that really resonated with him. He said, it's so strange that anxieties can be floating around on the DL in my mind. You would figure it's in my mind, literally right there. Why isn't it obvious? But then I write it down and it becomes obvious because it's separated from 1,000 other thoughts. I love that, Sammy.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I mean, I know you said that on the podcast, but hearing Josh say it back, it just sounds so much better.
No, it's true. That really resonated with me as well. Like, I find that when I'm journaling, again, you think you know who you are and what you're thinking all the time because you are living those moments.
Wrong.
No. First off, you might be on social media, in which case you are being plugged into the matrix. So that's a whole separate thing.
Bigger problem.
But also, like, you just have this monologue going on in your head if you're most people, but not all people. And I agree.
Buddha.
And the truth and the thing that I find is that when I'm like journaling and I'm just kind of free writing, like I'm not trying to force anything to come out, I'm just writing what comes to my head. It goes from, okay, I'm a little cold, my feet are cold, I'm sitting here in the kitchen, to yesterday I went on Twitter and then I got upset because I saw that somebody had commented on my thing, why don't you go and take risk? Who cares about your parents? And then I got angry. Anyway, the point is you see those things that are festering with you. And so love the comment, Josh. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on the episode.
Love it.
If you want to share what your thoughts are, yes, you can find me on Twitter. However, you can also go to buildawealthyspirit.com. That's right. You don't have to go on social media to engage with us anymore.
That's right, people. Not an accident.
Not an accident. We don't have to maintain an Instagram page. We can actually talk to you directly. We can get your comments. We love getting comments. It's so great to hear about what you're thinking about. It's much more connected. We do show notes. We do recaps. We share the links to everything we're talking about here. We do a little bit of a reflection on what we talked about.
We do.
Sign up for our newsletter. Go to the website, buildawealthyspirit.com. It will be in the podcast app, but super easy. We got the domain, buildawealthyspirit.com.
And you know what? I just want to do a real quick shout out to podcasts in general as a great medium that has not been completely poisoned like these other mediums have been poisoned.
That is so true.
They don't have like some sort of like infinite scroll version of podcasts. There's not like an addictive nature. Even though there's advertisements, they let you just flip past them. 15-second forward, 30-second forward, and you don't even have to listen to it. And I think that's a beautiful thing. So personally, I think podcasts are one of the best mediums out there.
Yeah, agreed. Unbiased always is also the best podcast. So you're doing well so far. Anyway, guys, we love you and we will see you next week.
But most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rulebook and we rethink the status quo.